Guys, welcome to the second part of the Secrets of the AEON Foil podcast together with Patrik Diethelm. Thanks a lot for the feedback on the first episode. Of course, also feel free to share your thoughts about this episode in the comments below. And of course, if you're looking for an AEON Foil yourself or anything else from Patrik, feel free to check out our online surf shop, The Wind Lounge. It's linked in the video description below. We are shipping worldwide and we are super happy to help you guys. So just feel free to reach out. And now I would say, enjoy the podcast. Let's go. Well, after the last talk that we had, I think we went quite deep into a lot of topics, the way that you develop the AEON, your thinking process that I think we can say is very different, or it's a different approach from the usual approach of development in windsurfing. And what we were missing is actually the two parts of the foil that, at least for me personally, I mean, I now learned a lot from you, how especially the fuselage and the mast have a huge impact. But for me, the front wing and the back wing are like the things that I think about to change before I go on the water every time, basically. And I'm very curious what specialties you have built into that, because I personally have the 375, the 450, and the 650. I tried also the 550, and already the small wings and the big wings, they look very different. And they also have such a different feeling to the foils that I have used before that one. It's so different. And also the back wing looks different. So I'm very curious what your thinking behind that is.
So maybe let's go first into the front wings. So basically we have two different shapes. One is just, let's say, one monocurve. Just like, let's say if you compare it to a board, let's say a single concave. And then we have the other ones with like a double concave. Yeah. The idea, I mean, with the more curves you put into, let's say, the steeper curve, whatever, down or up, or the more curves you put, the more stable it is in yaw. And but of course, for example, if you have the wings coming up, like the tips coming up, when you jibe, if they breach, if they come out the water, you they ventilate and you crash. So for me, it was very important that the tips stay in the water as long as possible. Of course, the narrow wings are not is not such a big problem. But so, for example, if I put them together, you can see when I would jibe, the longer one, of course, comes out of the water earlier. So that's why on the bigger one, I just went down immediately to make sure that the tip stays down as much as possible. Also, let's say on the bigger wings, so wider span, the control is not so important. I mean, if you're on a big sail, it's not like it's not the same as when you're on a 5.0. You need more stability. So that's why the bigger ones, they have like this monocurve, like a monoconcave, let's say, which also I feel like it makes it actually a bit more unstable, which is nice on big gear, because big gear always feels a little bit like dead. So it gives it's more reactive as well, because it rolls a bit more as well. While this one is a bit more locked, because let's say, imagine you have a little bit like a compression there and a compression there. So imagine this, let's say this front view shape, if first it goes like into a V, goes up, so the water, it's not like the water flows to the center, but let's say the water is running a little bit into this direction, while here it's running a little bit in this correct direction. So you have a bit more compression there and there. While on this one, you don't. You basically have it a bit everywhere. So it's constantly rolling a bit through the center. So you have a bit more roll. But it's nice, because imagine you're course racing and you really want to find, you go upwind and you really want to find all the time this little extra. So you almost, even like you do this little pumping going up. Or when you go straight downwind, you always try to search for that little more extra going down. While if you go crosswind, and especially so much faster, I don't know, what do the PWA guys do? 36 knots on a reach, like in strong wind.
Yeah.
So you don't want any movement. You just want to be sure it's going straight without like very stable. So this is where we go on this kind of shape. So we have the 550 down is this kind of shape, and the 650 up is this shape. I could maybe, I mean, now we have the foil 2 years. I could maybe think about having the 550 also monocurved, but I think for now it's okay as it is. So anyhow, so these are the main differences of the front view. The attachment, I mean, angle of attack and everything, I mean, there is nothing you can change. You just screw it on. I mean, you could actually do a 3D printing of a front shim, try a bit more angle of attack or whatever, but I think our foil doesn't need that. And you just screw them in and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. You have more questions on the front?
I have actually quite a few questions. But before I have to remember them, but I have one quick personal question. I don't know if it has anything to do with your foil, but also not especially directly with this topic, but maybe some people will recognize themselves in that. So I tried to go speed foiling the last 2 days, and I didn't really manage to find the trim. And I took the 375. It is also with that curve, in case people are wondering. So one of the smaller ones. It felt very locked, but every time a gust hit me, the gear was going down and I wasn't really accelerating. And I was really wondering, what am I supposed to change? Because I was thinking about the foil, then I was maybe the sail. I think
I
but I don't
totally
know.
understand. But now we talk about our foil, right?
Yeah, it's your foil, of course.
But what board do you have?
It was a new board. It's a 100-liter speed foil board, 71 centimeter wide.
Yeah, but what brand?
Futurefly.
Okay. And the sail, 0.7?
Yeah, 48.7.
Okay. So it's a difficult topic because, I mean, one, a lot of writers they have a bit trouble how to really express themselves what they really feel. I mean, is the nose going down or is the whole board going down? But is it like going down horizontally, or is the nose just getting pushed down? And so
no, it's the whole board. It's like normally it would accelerate when the gust hits, but it went down. And I was very curious what it is, because I tried this foil at my home spot or the setup, and it worked perfectly fine. And now I tried it here, and it was very strange.
So water makes a big difference. So for example, we went once testing in a place. It's not a lake, but it is kind of a lake, but it's connected to the open ocean. But there's a river coming in, and the river goes through a forest, and there's through wintertime, there's a lot of rain and brings down a lot of kind of black stuff. So it's not seaweed, but it kind of creates a lot of foam. In Sylt, for example, when it's really windy and onshore, you see all this brownish foam flying around, right?
Yeah.
So if you have the surface, let's say bubbly, but I'm not talking like big, not like when a wave breaks, you have like white water. Let's say the wave breaks and there's some reef underneath or something, even it cleans out again. if you look down, especially when you're like prone foil or wing foil, like when you ride a wave, sometimes you can see those little
Particles.
bubbles
Yeah.
around. It's just like, let's say the water has a different color in this area than it is, let's say, somewhere else. So somewhere else, let's say, is darker blue, while there it is, it just has more oxygen, it just has more bubbles, and you immediately feel that. You
Okay.
just you sell, I mean, you sell or foil into that, you immediately feel a drop. But it's not, let's say, a nose drop. It's just the whole foil. It's just kind of, it feels like a drop.
I
So
know
this is
it was more
the
like the
water.
yeah.
Water is not so dense anymore. So depending on the area where you're foiling, um, you know, you and in some places, even like when it's not too deep and you have, let's say, a bit of sandy underground and it's moving, so the sand is kind of
Yeah.
twirled up and stuff, you feel just like there's some difference there.
Mm.
Others is also when you have a little bit of seaweed, not long ones, not ones which are catching around the fore and they stay on the fold, but let's say they're constantly
Yeah.
somewhere on the leading edge, and this is also where you constantly feel like you don't have enough lift. And in Sylt last year, I heard like there was some seaweed. I don't know exactly what type of seaweed, but that's a huge difference. I mean,
Okay.
imagine on a fin, you feel that, but imagine
Yeah.
on a foil.
Yeah.
So is a very big. There's a huge difference. So
Okay.
in general, in Sylt last year, everybody tried to move the foot straps and mousetrack a bit more back because they were constantly. They felt like they were dropping.
Mm-hmm.
So um, the board plays a big role. I know for in the first few years, even myself, I said, okay, now the board is in the air. The
Mm-hmm.
shape doesn't matter so much anymore. It's more important about the foil and the sail. But well, even I mean, I also had to learn that is not actually true. And I mean, over time, I just make different prototype, different ideas. And then there are truly boards. They lift more than
Mm-hmm.
boards. They are much more neutral. So let's say you can compare it a little bit like when you windsurf with the fin, you have boards, they are a little bit more lifty, and then there are boards, they just like they feel a bit dead. So you might think like, okay, in the strong winds, you want rather the one which is a bit dead, which is true. And in the light wind, you want the one which is a bit more lifty.
Mm-hmm.
So we found out a little bit that thinner boards, so thinner boards. Let's say if the nose area is a bit thinner, so thinner rails, I mean, it's also a matter how the rail is shaped. If it's really round or if it's a bit more square,
Mm-hmm.
or but let's say in general, imagine you put your hand out of the window when you're driving the car.
Mm-hmm.
If your hand is flat and you do little movements, you feel immediate reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you make a fist, it's much more neutral.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in this case, if you have a thinner nose, you generally feel more lift rather than pushing down.
Okay.
While board with a thicker nose or thicker rails, shorter as well, of course, and narrower, like smaller nose, everything, you feel the board has less lift. So it's almost, if you keep the same setup, you feel like the board is dropping, the nose is dropping.
Okay.
So you can, of course, compensate that as well. But so the board, of course, now the sail is the same thing. So at the beginning, I remember everyone was, foil sails, we don't need loose leech, we don't need loose leech. But I think this came a little bit from going upwind, downwind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go crosswind, I mean, if you look at this loose leech, those guys really have not every brand has a lot of loose leech, but I think, I think from what we tested, it's just to have that top speed, and I mean, some nice loose leech is still fast. So if
Okay.
you close it up a bit and imagine now a gust hits, and if you have a very high aspect, so a lot of leverage at the very top.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever is pushing right up there is affecting your body movement more than whatever you have down here. So a shorter cell, you don't feel, be careful. If you have a shorter cell in height, you probably have a wider boom, which then you have more backhand pressure. But you know what I mean? Like backhand pressure is more like you have more power on your backhand. So you transfer whatever you need to hold on here, you transfer on your back foot to compensate, to hold it. So if you push your back foot, of course, you lift the nose up. While if you have, let's say, more neutral, even front hand power, you're pushing on your front foot, you're pushing the board down. So again, it's very sensitive of where you have your straps, what foil you have, how much rake you give on the, also you give more rake on the board, your back foot is lower than your front foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're more like this, your back foot is higher. So now you can put it both ways. If your straps, let's say if your nose is like this and your straps are forward, you can say, oh, I have a lot of power on my front leg to hold it down. But on the other hand, it might be also feel a little bit uncomfortable because your front leg is bent and your back leg is straight. So I personally believe if you just like kind of parallel with everything, so your arms, your legs, you can do a bit both. You can do a bit back foot, you can do a bit front foot. So you know what I mean? If you're constantly in one direction, if you need something more from the other one, you can't because you're already
sure.
weird position. So
the optimum
again,
would be pretty much
has
to
like
be
different.
balanced out, right?
Sorry.
Sorry. No, from what I hear, that what I'm looking for so is completely to be parallel, because I was like thinking of what feeling am I looking for? This is what I was missing a little bit, because sometimes I step on it and
difficult because
it
depends on the rider, honestly. I mean, I think depends on what he likes more. It's the same with the fin. Not everybody has the same trim. Some rather like everything further back, and they're riding like further back, and they even have a waist harness, while others, they have like this seat harness, or let's say this the harness, which is, it's a waist seat, but they do not lock the seat around their legs, so they keep it open, but you still have a bit more, let's say, bottom pressure, while then you can have a fully seat harness, and this is completely different style. So the way they stand on the board is different. And foiling is the same. Some prefer constantly giving front foot pressure, and some like actually to have that balance between back foot, front foot. So it is difficult to say which one is correct, because everybody is a bit different. So you really need to find what do you like, and or you just stick with something and do not change. Just stick with it, stay. Just you get used to it, because your body, your brain will also adapt to that exact feeling. So instead of just mucking around back and forward, and then your balance system is losing it a bit, like what do you want? You want this, want that. So sometimes it's better just put it in and just stay for 1 week, few weeks, just always the same, and I'm sure you will be faster with time as well. So and the cell, as I said before, if a cast, this is what by the way, we were working a lot. I mean, for 2025, 26, we were really trying to find, what is it, the foil, or is it the board, or is it the cell? But at the end, it's the whole combination. But funny is like that a lot of riders have our foil and they have other gear. So at the end, getting all this feedback, I feel like the foil is okay. You know what I mean? It's because this guy doesn't have that problem. He has the same foil. So I don't need to search to change something on the foil. So we improved. We changed the board a lot. And again, it depends a little bit who you are. For some, it's an improvement. For some, it's not. Maybe someone likes the older one better. It's like in surfing. I mean, there are so many different boards, so many different conditions, so many different styles, body types. So what do you really want for yourself? And but in general, the new board, it has this kind of lift, but not moving. So it feels like a thin board, but it's not really a thin board. So in the stronger winds, it's still more stable than the older one.
Okay.
And however, and with the cells, I mean, some like carbon battens, and the other one puts glass battens. Again, depends on the brand. Some brands have more backhand pressure. Some brands have less backhand, more front hand. And what do you prefer? If you have already a lot of front hand and you wish like, I wish to have a bit more backhand, you could actually change battens and put a bit softer battens at the back. So the cell is, let's say, filling in a little bit more to the back. So you get that bit more backhand pressure to compensate the pressure on your feet without actually moving your straps. So there are many, many, many combinations of what you can do.
Yeah, okay.
Same, by the way, with the fin is exactly the same. I remember there was a time where everybody said, "Oh, if you need more control, make the boom lower." And I'm like, why is that? That everybody just says this all the time. It's not completely not true, because
Oh,
imagine if you put the boom lower, right? My harness is not down, but my harness, it's, let's say, more in this direction. Okay. So imagine I put the boom higher. My harness is more like more vertical. So I can sit inside. And when I sit into my harness in a vertical extension of the harness lines, I have more weight on the boom, which is attached to the mast, where the mast is attached to the board. So it's holding the nose down. You know what I mean?
yeah, but it's like, doesn't it also like it's to me like, yes, I understand that.
So you
But
have
I
to be
tried it
careful.
many times and
A
it
higher
also,
boom
yeah,
front can do this. So a higher boom puts your body weight more back. If you lower the boom, your body weight goes more forward. But then you have also different clue heights at the back. So, and you can also compensate. So for example, if you lower the boom, right, you're doing this, but then you can move your mast track back.
sure, yeah.
So there are many things you can do, but it depends on the technique. So me, for example, in some places where it's really choppy and like even some waves rolling in. So if when you have this lower boom, which is holding the board down more, I would agree and say, okay, in flat water, that works. But when it's choppy, you push the nose more down. So you hit the chop harder. And when you hit the chop harder, because of the scoop in the nose, your board is taking off harder as well. So you kind of hit it, and then almost like a scoop, like in front of the master, you're kind of jumping.
Yeah.
And because then you're higher up, you fall down from higher into the next chop. So you have this constant bang, 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 bang. Well, when I put the boom higher, I'm just on the fin. So the nose is not touching anymore, but it's more like, so rather than doing this all the time, I just do the tail, and
Yeah.
the nose stays stable. You know what I mean? So I personally, and I also see like a lot of World Cup guys in Fuerteventura, for example, on the way out. Sometimes it's so super choppy. So if you have your boom too low, you hit the chop so hard, you lose control. So if you have your boom almost a little bit higher and your body weight back, you lift the nose, but then you have to be careful, not that the nose is not lifting too much.
Yeah.
So also more downhole helps, because every time you hit the chop, the leech, if you have more downhole, the leech is twisting off. So it's kind of giving the power away, while when the sail is more closed, you hit the chop, it's compressing that pressure and transferring onto the mast, and it's pushing the board down even more. So you hit it, you have all that weight, and the water around the rail is wrapping around the rail, and you have more surface of the board in the water, and you're slowing down. So in foiling, it is a bit similar. So for sure, if you do not have loose, imagine you have no loose leach. When the gust hits, what do you do? I mean, it's like let's say you have a wing or a kite. There's no loose. There is some loose leach integrate, but let's say you have a sail with old school sail, no loose leach. When the gust hits, 100% your board will go down. Yeah. What you do when the board goes down, because you don't want to touch down. So you're like, and you do not want to catapult. So your system will tell you, go back, because I don't want to catapult. I want to go back, and the nose is going down. I don't want to go down. I want to go back.
Yeah, you can do the banana.
Okay, but in the same moment you do that touchdown, because of reaction time, you're still back and probably push even harder. And then the next moment is exactly the other one. And then you just like, you shoot up, and then you're dead. So yeah. Because then probably the foil comes out, and this is where everything is lost. So loose leach is a big thing, actually, where I believe it's a lot of riders, or maybe some even, I see some sail designs, I believe they underestimate the loose leach for foiling. But yeah, so the sail, yes, makes a big difference. So if you feel like the board is pushing down or something, try more downhole.
Yeah, it's what I was just
early
thinking.
planing and upwind will be worse. But if you want to go for top speed, try more downhole, for example, or even loosening up the battens a little bit in the top. Because if you tighten the battens, you have to be careful you don't over tight the battens, because you can get kind of a little like a bubble, like a, even there's no camber, but the material around the battens and top to bottom, you can see that it's like it's bulging out, like it's making a bubble.
I know what you mean, yes.
Get more power. And also the batten sometimes is moving. So if you loosen up the batten is free. So this, even if you have wrinkles, by the way, wrinkles doesn't really slow you down. It's just an optical aspect where you, looks a bit more ugly, let's say. But if you loosen the battens and you let the sail work freely up there, it can actually help that the board is not pushing down so much.
Okay.
And of course, the mast, you can also have, let's say, a bit more flex top mast. If you
then I go crazy. That's too much for me.
There's no hard top flex top, but let's say everything is within a constant curve, but some are a little bit more towards flex top. Some others are a little bit towards hard top or whatever. And you can play there as well. So there's a lot of things you can play.
I have to go step by step. I go nuts if I now start different. First, I need to step by step. I think the downhaul is, for me, is a takeaway. It's what I was thinking anyway, and the batten tension also. I was just curious if this gust comes, gear goes down, if this is something familiar where you know right away, okay, it's this and that. But it appears to me it could be anything. So
it's also the stance. If you have at first a very wide stance, feels very safe, because you feel like you have more control. But when you do this and you have a wide stance, immediately you put a lot of pressure. If you do that, you have a lot of pressure. But so imagine you're standing very, very, very close. If you do this a lot, because the distance of the leverage is very little, so you're not actually giving a lot of pressure. Even you do a lot, but you don't give a lot. So if you have a narrow stance, have you ever watched someone prone foiling, or let's say towing foiling?
Yeah.
The stance they have is ridiculous. I mean, really, they're standing so narrow.
That's an interesting.
I've thought about it a lot, and it is actually because, as I said, if you have a wide stance, you do something wrong, you feel a lot of movement going up and down. If you stand more narrow, even you have this little body wobble, it's not reacting immediately. So
And
there's
that's
also one more thing you can do.
an interesting one that I never thought about.
Yeah, but then it's the other thing. Do you feel safe with the narrow stance?
Yeah,
Yes or
probably
no?
not, but still, it's an interesting,
I think it is step by step getting used to something a bit more and a bit more and a bit more.
Yeah.
And
I'm buying
the
in the end the
profile, by the
DNA
way,
X front wing. So
the profile, by the way, makes a huge difference also
what?
in pitch stability, the profile. So the front wing profile.
Yeah.
This was also a point at the very beginning when I was like, I want to go for this profile. Everybody was just like, no way, it's not fast. And I'm like, yeah, but it's very stable. So let's say, I mean, there are so many different profiles with, let's say, a bit more symmetric entry with a concave at the back, or a bit more asymmetric. So it means like you have a more curved top and a flatter bottom side. And there are so many variations, but I believe there are profiles. And by the way, you can also change the angle of attack to get more power, even if you have a flat sheet, just a flat sheet. So whatever, let's take this one here. If you give angle of attack, you have power. So there's no profile, nothing. So you can do that. But I feel a little bit, if you have, there's also a feeling it's hard to describe. And a lot of, I know, and it's not proven, but when I'm out there, and even when I talk to some of my riders, I feel like there is a situation where you feel like the foil is shooting up. There is a situation where you feel like the board, or let's say the foil, wants to go up like this. And I feel like there's a massive difference between this power or this power. So if you put angle of attack, everything I tried, and I was like, oh, I'm missing power. And I gave more angle of attack just with some shims, like just some 3D printed shims at the front. I always felt like I'm shooting more. While when I keep, let's say, less angle of attack, but a more powerful profile, I do feel more power as well, but this one and not that one.
Yeah.
So, and this one for me is gentle. You know what I mean? It's easier for me. I have more time to react than that one. If that one comes up, you push it down straight away. But then maybe it's not enough. You push even harder, and then if it comes, it goes then too much. So I have more dolphin or more, Then I have, let's say, with a more powerful profile, but less angle of attack. Of course, the more powerful profile as well, let's say, the faster you go, you start feeling you hit the wall, like, where's the next gear? It's just constantly like you feel this break. While, let's say, a more slippery profile, but with more angle of attack, you still feel like you can gain on some more speed. You really feel like, oh, I can. It's coming. You hit the gut, you feel like it's coming. But then you lose control and you have this shooting up, and it also doesn't help. So again, what do you want? 2 seconds or you want 500 meters is a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, sorry.
Elwing, maybe.
Yeah, I have just one more question. Maybe I don't know how, probably you cannot probably give a quick answer on that one, but I think it's a really important one actually for everybody who's considering to buy this foil. Because I bought the foil because of Michel, because he told me, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I was trusting him. We are friends. And what he told me is, you don't need a bigger front wing than 650. And before I had a 1000 front wing, a 900 front wing. These were my light wind front wings. And I was like, oh, Michel, are you really sure I only need the 650? And then I got it. And the 650 to me I have never touched a bigger front wing since I got this one, to be honest. I actually most of the time now use the 450, even in lighter winds. So it's when I experimented in the beginning, it was ridiculous to me. Also, when I tried the 375, I was feeling like, it feels like my old 560. But why or what do you do with your foil that you have so much more power with less surface area? What is it?
This is exactly what I said before. Instead
Hmm.
of giving angle of attack or more angle of attack and to create power, let's say I have a more slippery profile, a fast profile, but then I need to give more angle of attack. So you create drag as well.
Yeah.
So my approach is more like I rather choose a more powerful profile, but with less angle of attack, with might be in top speed slower, but in average speed, it is faster because you're more stable. And of course, with this more powerful profile, I can choose a smaller front wing. So again,
Hmm.
I'm compensating. So at the end, the difference in top speed becomes less and less and less compared to the other profile. But I never lose control because even a smaller front wing, it is more controllable than a bigger one because
Yeah,
you
that's what I felt also.
it's also like when you have let's say waves, when you enter the waves, the water surface, or let's say
Mhm.
the stream, the power under the water surface is
Mhm.
changing its direction. So imagine you could foil in completely flat water,
Mhm.
no chop, no nothing. Then the power will be steady all the time. Okay, again depends what kind of current you have underwater, depending on in which. I mean, let's say on a lake, you could even have current on a lake, depending if there's
You
a
have
river or something flowing
it's
in. But
working actually.
exactly, so it's a tough one. But you know where
Yeah,
I'm
I know what you mean.
going. Like imagine you have nothing, no current, no nothing, no
Yeah.
boats, no this, no that, no wind. The foil will be very easy to just set to the certain height and you just go. But if you have chop and waves, it's changing that. So if you enter, imagine you enter a wave or chop like this. So basically in this moment, the foil is almost like you're going, you know what I mean? You have a different angle of attack. So from this to this, you have a different angle of attack. So you enter the chop, you feel like more power. You come
Yeah.
out of it, you almost feel like a drop. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have like this little, you go through it like you feel like this little whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
So and if you keep going into the next and the next and the next shot, you constantly feel like this whoop, 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 whoop. So but always I feel with more angle of attack, you don't have this whoop whoop. You rather have this shooting up and then dropping down, shooting up, dropping down.
Yeah, it's quite funny actually.
So
We
it is
sometimes
everything. So with the more powerful profile, I can have less angle of attack. Plus, I can choose a smaller front wing. So I lose power, but I gain on speed because I have less drag. So it's a
okay.
little bit a combination.
Okay, I understand. So it's the profile has more power. Still it's remarkable difference.
What I also did, I mean, you have to understand also understand what kind of board width are we using, and because at the beginning someone said 65 wide, 70 wide for very strong wind is really good. So then for very light, I mean, we were at 91. I mean, let's talk slalom because course racing is 1 meter. But
Yeah.
let's say within the range slalom speed, you have from 91 down to 70.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. So with the board width, the span of the front wing should change as well. Because if you have a very wide span, but your board is narrow, you know what I mean? It doesn't fit because if you're standing outside on the rail, but if the
Mhm.
board is narrow, your leverage
Oh,
over
sorry.
the foil, mast, and front wing is not enough.
Yeah.
So while you have a very narrow front wing and you have this really wide board, it also feels weird. So, but I believe by now, also looking at World Cup, 85, 80, 85, even in strong winds, even in very strong winds, I'm talking like Defi wind 50 knots, the guys still don't choose smaller than 80. Probably also because they mostly ride 85 and
Yeah.
they're not really used to use something smaller. They probably could use 75 if they use it all the time. But if you jump on this smaller board, it just feels sometimes you're not fully locked.
Mm-hmm.
But so 80, 85, that then actually means that the front wings, they should all be pretty much in a similar span,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Because of the leverage of the board.
Yeah.
So it's not like the 350 should be super narrow and then the
Mm-hmm.
550 should be super wide. I was rather trying to find, let's say, a 550 rather a bit narrow,
Mm-hmm.
but then a 375 rather wide. So I still have a similar, you can't really do the same. It's not possible.
Yeah. Okay, I
But
understand.
I rather try to have this roll and stability depending a little bit on the board width. So that's another thing we did. We felt like for that board, there's a certain front wing size perfect. And the bigger ones, we try to keep them narrow, while the smaller ones, we try to make them wider. And I
Mm.
see some other brands, they just constant, they just do tuck, 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 tuck. So the bigger the surface, the bigger the span with pretty much exact proportions.
Yeah.
And we didn't do this. So
Okay.
I try to have the, but again, the span depends on what dihedral you have. So what the front view, what kind and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot just say, oh, Patrik has a 64, 62, and let's copy that, because it just doesn't work. Depends on all the other stuff you do on the foil. So, but the idea is to have this perfect front wings for, let's say, 80, 85, which are, I believe like 90, 95% of riders are using that size of board.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say I'm again a lot of new stuff. I think I have to rewatch it also again. It's really a lot. But now that the back wing, I'm I'm actually curious what you will say about the back wing. I must say, I the first time I saw it, I and also used it, it gave me so much more stability, less I felt less torsion, I think it's called, twisting on the water, the whole gear. And by the way, also the shims and so on that you brought with it, I like that a lot. The only thing that I didn't like so much is I think in the third session I hit a rock with my back wing and the side of it broke off and I was like,
Sure.
that's fragile.
Absolutely sure. I mean,
Yeah,
by the way, there's if you look in, just quickly back to the front wing, if you look in an aeroplane,
yeah.
let's say passenger aeroplane with wide span, when they in the air with all the weight, the wings are going up. Let's say it has a V
Hmm.
and even winglets. So the reason for that is, so when let's say the heavy part in the center is sitting lower than the side, you know what I mean? Like the stream can kind of, let's say, a little bit slide to the side and out.
Hmm.
But if you put something down, let's say the power gets more like it's more sliding towards the center.
Hmm.
But when you have power in the very center, so let's say this one, back to this one, if you have power in the center, it's this one. So if imagine, I will turn it around, but of course the profile is now not correct, but imagine you have this. So it's sliding to the sides, you have stability there and there. So it's more, let's say, sitting like this. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So let's say in terms of front wing, front view, so
Hmm.
dihedral, I mean, dihedral, anhedral is not the correct word. I don't even know in English. And by the way, I asked a few guys, what's actually the word for that front view? And nobody really, whatever.
Front view
So
sounds good.
front view, okay. So the only reason I went down is because of tip bridge. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a must. So for me, like when I have a list, when I develop, I put a list. Okay, what do I need to look at? What am I looking for? And I come to some points, I'm like, tips up? No way. So I don't need to think about it. That's it. I just tips down because it's a must.
But the foil I was using before had the tips up. I
Which
think.
one?
I think was it an F?
I'm talking about front wing.
I was talking about back wing. Okay, okay.
So okay. So front wing for me, tips down. I've
Yeah.
seen foils that have tips up, even front wing,
Oh
which
no,
is first.
this was all down. Just the back wing I had before it went up on the side.
So the back wing, you have to be very careful how you look at the back wing because the back wing is pulling down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare the back wing, if you look at the back wing and compare it to, let's say, a front wing, you need to look at it this way. It's very simple. You touch the profile. When you feel a concave or a flatter side, put it down, because then you're understanding, like an aeroplane, how something is flying in the air. Most people only think about the main wings, and not the tail wings.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the tail wing is also called a stab, like stabilizer. So should it give a lot of power? Should it not? Or should it just do stabilizing? So there's another question, because if you have a pump foil, do you want it stable? No, because I'm constantly pumping. So do I want the stabilizer, or do I rather want something which helps me pumping?
Mm-hmm.
While on slalom, yes, I want a stabilizer. Like, it needs to stabilize as much as it can.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep talking about the slalom foil. So whenever you look at the profile, do not confuse your brain the way you look at something.
Yeah, yeah.
Curvy part up, and the flatter or the concave part, have it down. So now look at the tail wing if you would like to look at it as an aeroplane, right?
Yeah.
So it sits up and it gives a lot of control.
Okay, I understand. Yes. Also, it's the
So
same
that's
principle as
why,
with the front wing you're trying to explain, right?
but now I need to turn the tail wing, because the tail wing works the other way around. So I put the tips down, of course, one, because of breaching. So it breaches less. This breaches earlier, that breaches later. Second, to have the most control possible. So if I look at it as an aeroplane, wings go up and it sits there and is very, very smooth and controllable. So it's not compressing power. It's more like releasing power. So no matter whatever wobble, stream, whatever comes, that is constantly trying to give you the most comfort possible. That's why down.
But wait, you explain me the other way around. You have the most control, and then you say you want the most control, and then you turn it around. You have to help me.
Again. And this is where most get lost.
Okay.
To look at that, any wing, whatever, it's a foil, it's the wing, it's the sail, whatever it is, to compare. Look, for the most people in the world, they compare something to an aeroplane, because then immediately they understand, oh, these are wings and they fly.
Mm-hmm.
Why do a wing fly? blah, 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 because of this and this. So there, it's an easy connection and easy understanding compared to an aeroplane. But most people, when they think about an aeroplane, they think about the main wings, the front wings. They don't think about the tail wing of the airplane. So if you want to always compare, let's say, with the front wing of an airplane, the main wings, if it's powerful or controllable or whatever it does, winglets up, down, whatever. So curved part up, flat, concave part, whatever, down. So this is this. So curved part is like this, and that's the flat part. So now I am looking at it as an aeroplane main front wing. Okay. That looks controllable, correct? So now I design it, very controllable. The only thing I have to do at the end, I need to put the connection on this side because I will mount it like this. Because this one is pulling down. So I need, you can also do something. If you want to look at your front wing and you want to understand, just look at it like this. Then you understand what it's doing. It's actually pulling down, right? But it's a bit uncomfortable to look at it like this. So,
but
can also
do I understand correct that the difference now is that on the windsurf it's pulling down the tail wing, and on the is it not also pulling down on the aeroplane?
Tail wing always pulls down, even on an aeroplane. No, actually, on an aeroplane you have to be careful. They have flaps to trim as well. So depends what you want to do.
Still don't understand why you turn it upside down. What I understand, the core principle.
Okay. I think we're losing a little bit time in this.
No, it's okay.
Let's you settle that one. Think about it a little bit more when you watch the video. But
I have one question I need to ask. I mean, the viewers, you can write in the comments down below if you got it. I'm very curious. Probably only geniuses in the comment section. But the only thing that I don't understand is that you say you get control when they go up, but now you make them go down. Isn't this making it unstable?
Okay, I say it different. If you put the tips towards where the wing has to pull, this is where you gain on control. So if the wing has to pull up, like an airplane with front wing, if it pulls up, the tips go up. This is control. If the wing has to pull down, then the tips go down.
Okay, I understand. I understand. But wait, then I have one more question. Why then the front wing? Why is the front wing not in the other direction?
Because of the tip bridge.
Because
the priority
is different. Okay.
In control or tip bridge, for me, it's obvious. Tip bridge in a jibe is the worst it can happen. If you're going upwind in a race and the tip comes out, then you're in trouble.
It's over. Yeah. Okay, I understand.
So the priority of tip bridge is higher than the priority of control. You understand? When I design, I have a priority list.
So in theory, if we don't have tip bridge, then making the front wing like this would be better, or
would be more controllable.
More controllable.
To be honest, I haven't tried, but yes, probably logical would have more control.
Okay.
But also less power, because the power can escape, let's say, to the side. Well, when you have more like a monoconcave, it compresses more, you have more power.
So maybe you could build this.
You can actually compare it also a little bit with the windsurf board. If you have a V, you gain on control, the center sits deeper in the water, and it's comfortable. Let's say you're cutting through the chop. If you have a monoconcave, you feel like the board has a bit more power in the center, so it's hovering, but you also have a bit more rolling because it's round. So a V sits and the water, let's say, pushes a bit more to the side, so it's stable, while a monoconcave is has more power, more lift, but a bit more unstable.
Okay, nice. I think I get it.
Got it? Good. All right. So don't forget how to look at the tail wing. And by the way, very, very, very funny. Now, a front wing, you can also give a twist. So you can start the twist from the center more and more and more, like a windsurf sail. If you look windsurf sails, the loose leech can start right above the boom, constant open, 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 all the way to the top. Or you can also above the boom, batten the next batten up, and the next, you can have it more close and then open up. So there are many different, but again, you cannot say, oh, this is better than the other. It depends with the combination of the rest of the sail. So here's the same. You can have a twist starting from the center more and more and more, or you can have a constant same here and only have a tip twist or whatever. You can start wherever you want. You need to test it. You feel better, it's good. If you don't feel better, well, you don't do it. So with a tail wing, you can do actually the same thing. But I have literally seen tail wings from I mean, like very, very high-end brands. They have the tip twist the wrong way around. Seriously, I'm not joking. So I'm like, at very first I was like, you have to be careful. You have whatever, because let's say we talk about the AEON, but I also want to try to help, let's say, other customers who have interest on how to set up their gear in foiling or to learn something about it. So no matter what foil you buy, understand first, where is the tail wing mounted? Is it mounted on top or is it mounted under the fuselage? Because it depends how you hold it in your hands. So you have the connection up, means that one is under the fuselage. But if the connection is on top, means, you know what I mean? You put the connection on top of the fuselage. So it depends a little bit how you hold it in your hands. Most customers hold the tail wing always with the connection up. Like I'm holding this front wing with the connection up, right? So I'm holding the tail wing with the connection up. But actually I have here our other front wing, just a second. So this is the front wing we have. Sorry, this is the tail wing we have from our OEM product, which is the, let's say, winging, or it also does windsurf, it does a bit of everything. So you see, if I would hold this one like this with a connection up, that would be wrong. Because this one has actually the tail wing on top of the fuselage. So I need to hold it like this. So you have to be careful. How do you hold your tail wing? You have to hold it in the correct way, how it runs through the water, mounted on the fuselage. But then be very careful. When you look at the tip twist, you have to think that actually it's putting down. So to not brain mistaking how you look at it, I always look at a wing, no matter connection up, down. I look at it with the curvy part up. So I look at it like this. So when I turn around and I can see the tip twist, it should be that way. And I'm looking at him like, wait a minute, what? And I looked at it, I'm like, it went the wrong way. And I believe maybe the designer in the moment of, and it I mean, it's not that simple, because you have so many parameters and you do, and then sometimes I do the same when I, like the board, the windsurf board, I shape it and I turn it around. I look at it from this side, then I put it on the rail. I look at it from that side. I look from the back. I turn the board around, or let's say I move around the board and look at it from all the sides. So, but when you work on the computer and you design something, it's not like you're turning the computer up and upside down and stuff. So, but I actually sometimes, just for the peace of mind, just to have another view, I flip it and I look at it. I'm like, okay. So I look at it for a few minutes, and I sometimes felt like, oh, maybe, I got some ideas because I then started to look at it and then the other way around. However, so
Wow.
very, very careful. So what happened then? I said to this one guy, look, sand it. So the tip twist was the wrong way around, because he really complained. He said, look, no matter what I do, so many shim positions, back, forward, angles, and it's so sensitive. I'm like, so I looked at it and I don't know, I try to help. And I saw that. And of course, so it means like you are compressing the power rather than releasing the power. So if you're compressing it even more, even if you just go a little bit faster, you have more difference in power than you have the other way around. So I said, look, just sand it off. I mean, by the way, he had a little bit, the tip was a bit broken. I said, look, you need to sand it anyway and make both. And by the way, if you have one tip side a little bit broken, make sure you sand both sides.
Oh,
If
really?
it's asymmetry, you feel it. So if that tip is broken and you sand it, and it's, let's say, 5 mil or 10 mil lower, because it's quite narrow. So if you hit it, it's easy, 10 mil, boom. If you sand it, or maybe it's just 5, but after sanding, it's maybe 10. If you leave that side the same, no good.
That's what I did.
Literally, you feel it. So, of course, if you repair it and you, I don't know, put carbon or resin and sand it back, and it's okay. But in the heat, for example, in a race, sometimes you have no time, or you don't have a spare one, or the next one you have is bigger or smaller and you don't want it. You want that one. Sand both sides. Make sure.
Okay.
So, however, so he sanded it and went out and immediately had less power. So he had to change actually the tail shim a little bit, but then it was okay and the power was more constant all the time.
Okay.
So
That's the final
probably
boss.
just a mistake. I mean, I'm sure whoever designed it understands all that, but you know what I mean? Like, mistakes happen, like when you
Yeah,
every day computer designing and sometimes you lose it a bit. So, however, so yeah. And by the way, this happened to us. So someone hit the tail wing, a rider of mine, and I told him, like, measure and cut it and sand it and do both sides and try. So maybe you will learn something. And he did. And he actually said, oh, it's faster.
Yeah.
So that's why later we came with this one, which is exactly the same. So that's the 160, that's the 150. And the only thing is, this one has cut tip. I mean, we did not cut the tips, but we make a mold.
Yeah, sure.
That shape, because I didn't want to risk anything. I knew profile, everything is fine. And so why should I risk? So I made exactly the same, just like with the cut tip. So that's that one. So that's the 150, which is faster. Absolutely. I mean, you feel it straight away. It is faster, but you also have a little bit more yaw. By the way, pitch up and down. So in the linear direction forward, if it's going up and down, that's pitch. Left and right. I mean, left and right, like this. This is a roll. And then when you have this one, this is yaw.
Yaw.
Yeah, a lot of people say it's a jaw, but I also had to let somebody correct my bad English. So it's yaw.
Okay.
Yaw. Just say like ja, yaw.
Yeah, yeah, that's possible as a East German. Ja, sicher.
However, yaw,
Ja.
genau.
Oh.
So it was worse. I mean, worse, yes, less stable. And especially in the jibe. In the jibe, I think a lot of riders underestimate that jibe. How much you can actually gain in a jibe. I understand if you constantly just head to head and you have to start and you just off the start, you're maybe 50 meters, you're already that behind, you're like, oh no, why? No, no, no. And this is just not a nice feeling. And I know everybody start wants to be ahead. That feels good. But when it comes to jiving, man. And by the way, I had a discussion once with one of my team riders, and he said, "Yeah, but Patrick, we are on another level." And I said, "Yes, I know you're on another level, but I am riding all by myself. You are riding with 7 other angry, aggressive. Everybody wants to win. So they push each other, and you cannot hear anymore. Before you could, with the fin, you could hear the board. You could hear someone where they are. Even you're not looking, you understood where they are. Now you're not. So to be aware of what's happening around you and then concentrate on your tactics, how you want to enter into the jibe and through the jibe and out of the jibe. How can you do that all? I mean, at the end, I still believe, even if you're at this very, very high level, but you lose so much focus on your actual riding because you have to be careful of all the other stuff around you. So at the end, me jibing all alone, but I'm a cook. The other guys are super top guys, but jibing with all those other problems around them. You know what I mean? I feel like they need something similar than me. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just the control around the jibe. It's just it just stays there and you can push it and you can slam it and out of the jibe, it's just like it accelerates actually. It's like a pump foil. In a pump foil, you push it down and then you, wham, you feel this acceleration. Same thing. You go into a jibe and you push it through, you switch the cell, and the moment you just feel like, whoom, it's accelerating. While I feel personally with this one, I feel like it's more like I'm almost a little bit drifting. Okay, again, my skill is not that good, but I'm jibing all by myself while others need to jibe with other guys. And there's the wake and there's turbulence and there's a lot of stuff in the water. So I just feel like it's this kind of drift, and I need to be more sensitive in the jibe. So I don't know. At the end, oh, by the way, sorry, I made a mistake. That's the 175. That's the 160. So I do not. Maybe I have the 150 here. Yes,
I have it too.
it's this one. Anyway, they look the same.
Yeah, nice. Looks familiar.
So, and because that worked, we did the same with the 195, which looked exactly like that, just bigger. We made a 175 out of it.
That's the one. Okay, get it.
So
Nice.
then angle of attack, tail wing. Here we are again. You can have a profile which is more slippery, more efficient, more everything, but you might need a bit more angle of attack. You give more angle of attack, you create drag. And then come back to my personal theory feeling that this kind of shooting up in the front wing, it starts at the back, shooting down. Remember, opposite. Tail wing is the other way around. So angle of attack in the front, angle of attack in the back. So front wants to shoot up, back wants to shoot down. So you have this really aggressive kind of thing. So what I try is more like, imagine you have no angle of attack at all, just horizontal, but the profile is set exactly. Everything, profile, surface is exactly set for your style, for your weight, for your speed, and the tail wing as well. So what is really moving? Nothing, because the power is so balanced and there's nothing doing up and down or whatever. You know what I mean? So that would be optimal. And I know a lot of people always compare to aeroplanes and rockets and submarines and I don't know whatever, but they all have trim flaps. We don't. So it's so much more complicated. Also,
Mhm.
the moth, the moth, the boat,
Mhm.
the little boat looks like an American, like with the wing, with the foil. They also have trim flaps. They have this auf Deutsch eine Rute
Mm,
vorne.
yeah.
English, the batten.
I know what you mean.
That thing is trimming,
Yeah.
trimming the
Yeah. Yeah.
trimming. For Americans Cup, they can trim. We cannot trim. So it's
Yeah.
totally
Okay.
different. So, but angle of attack, what's good with our foil is that everything is so plug and play that no matter what tail wing or front wing you put on, I believe between 0.5 and 1 degree tail wing shim, you're right there. At the beginning, most riders, even the pros, used a bit more, even on the smaller wing. But I kind of felt it's just a matter of time. They will put less and less and less. Because more and more you understand the foil. It's like with a car. More you know the car, the harder you can get the corner. And you know exactly how to steer to get that corner right. So more you use the same foil without actually trying and changing and this and that, then you never get used to something.
Mhm.
So rather than trying to adapt the foil to what you want, maybe just stick with it, whatever you set. I mean, don't set up whatever, but set up something maybe a rider has and just try to sail with it for a long time and you will automatically adapt. It's
Okay.
training. So because otherwise you're always confused, I feel, you know.
No, yeah.
Also, if you use that same trim in flat water, same trim on the lake, same trim on the open ocean, same trim in wind from the left, from the right, whatever, more and more you know, now I'm here. I know, I remember. So I need to do a little bit more here, a little bit more there, just with your style rather than changing and changing and changing. Except you have understood everything so well that it helps changing.
Me not.
Um,
I'm trying my best. I
with the
think,
tailwing, we
yeah,
have one more feature. We can move it back and forward. I know
true.
for most, this is another confusing part, but it's very simple. If you're not familiar with it, means you're not yet at the level to play with it. Just leave it all the way at the back. That's it. But of
Okay.
course, try what happens. So if you put the tail wing more forward, you're changing the percentage of, let's say, where the mast sits in comparison to front wing, tail wing. So imagine the mast, let's say, I just say a number, 30% in the front wing mast, then 70% at the back is the tail wing. If I put the tail wing forward, I have a different total distance, so the percentage is changing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I have something more pivoting. So
Mm.
let's say if I put the tail wing forward, I have, let's say, a shorter fuselage
Yeah.
because the front wing to the mast has not changed. You know what I mean? It's almost like the mast is more in the middle
Mhm.
of front wing, tail wing, which is more pivoting.
Yeah.
So let's say more unstable in pitch, but you gain on power. So you
Mhm.
put the tail wing forward, you gain power. It's not you gain. I know. Wait. Now a lot of people say, "Oh, it's completely wrong" and whatever. I understand very well. One is that a lot of people have to understand. One is theory. Whatever the computer and the software and the theory and the books tell you, yes. But the other thing is what you really feel on the water. Correct. So if you do not change the angle and you put the tail wing forward, you have less leverage. So you have actually less power. But what happens is it is less stable. So it's more reactive. So if you want a little bit, so if you push the tail, if you push your back foot just a tiny bit before, when the tail was at the back, let's say it was at the verge, it did not react because the tail wing is the stabilizer. So the power of the stabilizer and the position of the stabilizer at the back did not allow you that little push to change. While if you put it forward and that little push could actually affect something, so the foil is just giving that little wiggle and gives you that uplift because you're changing the angle of attack of the front wing. You know what I mean? So with that moment, you gain on power. So in the light wind, you want to have something more reactive, more nervous, to be always at the very limit. So you can ride really, really high and always search the max, max, max.
I understand. Okay.
That's why you feel more power on the water when you put it forward. But of course, you also feel less stable. But,
All right. Sounds good.
so,
I think we covered the topic of front and back wing. I mean, the people, I highly recommend to subscribe to this channel because you will find one more podcast here, which we will record in just a moment about a very interesting topic, PWA topic. Might be a scandal. We will.
I have one last thing we have not touched, and that's actually that's a very important topic. It's about the mast and board rig.
Okay.
Again, there are people saying, oh, if you change your rake from the mast on the board, your front wing is either further forward or further back. Correct. If you measure it with a 90-degree angle from the bottom surface of the board up, if you give more rake, your front wing is actually moving away from that point. If you give less rake, then the front wing is moving forward. But let's say the trick is not too much like, let's say the idea is not that all to bring the front wing forward or back. It is really more like if the board is riding like that, or if the board is riding like this, how you touch down or how your leg power is on the board. So if the board is more like this, you have more power on your back leg. This is also the way how you hold your sail. So again, if I'm moving the boom up, my body falls backwards. So if I'm lowering the boom, or for example, the IQ sail has more eyelets at the back. You can now say, yes, I'm changing the eyelet because of power, more release or less release. But it also actually depends on how much the cross batten is overhanging behind the clue. Then you had, let's say, more reflex or less reflex. But in most foil sails, it's tiny nothing. And let's say it is not really a reflex much. But of course, if you have the lower eyelet, the distance to the batten is more, which makes it softer. So you also release. So for you, by the way, if you have this problem that, let's say, the board is get pushed down, try maybe the lower clue as well.
I only have one.
but you know what I mean. So
yeah, sure. I know the issue. Yes.
Then you have this little more twist.
Yeah, sure.
Which if the twist starts at the very bottom, let's say just right above the boom, it will affect everything. So it's not just right there. The whole angle, the whole loose leech will go with it. So, however, if you put the boom at the back lower, so if you put the boom front higher or the back lower, is let's say, has a similar effect with your body. So now there are also some who actually say when you change the rake of the mast, the foil penetrates through the water differently. And that's not correct. So,
Mm.
because when you change the mast in the board rake, the only thing you do is just either you ride like that or you ride like this. That thing here, in comparison to the foil, stays where it is. It will not change.
Okay, that makes sense.
What I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
But now you have to be, there's another thing. If you start shimming inside the fuselage, so
Oh my God. But who does
for
that?
example,
That's for freaks.
imagine you put a shim in here at the front or at the back. So
You do this?
yeah, of course, we are testing everything. But let's say when we test as much as we can. But then I really want to simplify everything
Mhm.
so much that you just put it together and basically I
Oh,
will
thank
literally
God.
try put 0 degree shim at the back. It works. You can ride. Still
Okay.
pretty stable. You put 0.5, you put 1, it still works. Others don't. Seriously, like others are so sensitive, but this is exactly my point. If something is not sensitive, even for once you have the wrong shim in the wrong conditions or whatever, the wind increasing or the wind is dropping or whatever, or the wind is shifting and you need to point upwind to catch the mark or whatever it is, doesn't matter, it still works. It's not optimal anymore, but while others, they feel like, and then you lose, like you're like, then you have an excuse, right? Then you're like, wind shifted this. So there's always an excuse, but it doesn't really matter because that's your result you get. You can
Mm.
complain all day long after the race at the beach. It won't change anything. You've done
Mm.
your result. So it's important to just keep going wherever you are in whatever situation you are. Don't complain. Instead of shouting and screaming, as so many riders do, just put the effort into pumping and keep going and make
Yeah.
sure you get a good result rather than trying that someone rises the cancel race flag.
I get
However,
it.
my opinion.
Yeah.
So if you shim the front or the back inside here, so let's say you're changing the angle of the mast.
Mhm.
It's not exactly as I say now, but try to imagine that the fuselage goes through the water horizontal. It's not exactly true because depending on the shape of your fuselage, a fuselage could go through the water even on a slight angle of attack.
Mhm.
So, but let's say our fuselage, which is completely symmetric from front to back, I would say, just to simplify
Mhm.
the understanding how to look at it, imagine this one horizontal. Then you have front wing, angle of attack. Then you have tail wing, angle of attack, whatever you want. Then you have the mast. But if you put the mast in like this or like that, has again nothing to do how the board is because I can put the mast in like that and I can change the shim and the board. So the board is the relation between
I
this
understand,
one,
yes.
the board,
Can stay the same, even with the
correct,
mask being like this.
than this one. So for example, if I shim the front, the mast is a little bit like this. Means I'll take this one as the mast to easily understand. If you look at the windsurfing fin, if the rake is to the back on a windsurf fin, it's like a seaweed fin. So going upwind is hard. Why? Because you're not sailing straight. You're sailing a little bit sideways. So if I have this fin raked back, if I sail a little bit sideways, look, the water is pushing. So it's pushing and pushing the board down. So with a seaweed fin going downwind is really easy.
Hmm.
And you never spin out basically because it's really hard to push that seaweed fin into a spin out.
Mhm.
Also, when it starts to ventilate, the water flowing through, passing the fin is just like, let's say, is pushing the air away. While imagine you put the fin forward. So because you're sailing a little bit sideways, so the front is catching. So the front, if the mast is or the fin is a little bit forward, let's say, the board always wants to go upwind.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go downwind, but the board wants to go upwind, then it starts to wobble. You know what I mean? So if you have a mast which is a bit raked forward for course racing, can be really nice because you get this extra pointing.
Oh.
While on a crosswind run, you might feel like you lose control. So again, this you can play with. So we have we are controlling this as well without that actually the customer know, and I believe most team riders don't even know. We are controlling this, and in course racing, we rather have, let's say, this little tiny degree mast forward, because if you put the mast a little bit more forward, you can actually reduce the distance from front wing to mast. So you have less torsion in the front of the mast. So while for course racing, we have the mast a little tiny forward, but let's say if I wouldn't, we do not yet have a free ride, but if I would really make a fully dedicated free ride foil, I would actually rake the mast a tiny back, because you gain on control and comfort, because also the free ride fuselage is not 1.10 m or 1 meter, it's rather like 90 or 95. So the front is shorter, has less torsion, so I can allow to give a little bit mast rake back to gain that little extra tiny control for the free rider. While in course racing, a little bit forward, I shorten that distance, so I have less twist because of this big front wing, which is really twisting everything. And I gain on control, and I gain a little tiny bit on upwind.
All right. Wow.
Too much information?
Man, I'm not joking. I'm getting a bit dizzy.
So coming back to your first question of the very beginning part, the first part of this podcast, you ask me what makes the foil so good.
Yeah.
I tell you what, thinking about every little detail and put it together right for course racing, and we put it together right for slalom, and put it together right for free ride, without someone needs to think about rake shim and degrees and up and down. So plug and play. Just don't think. Just put it together. Just go. Trust of the work we do. So
Yeah,
this is a little bit what makes it good as well. Not only, of course, but yeah.
That's amazing last words. I'm very grateful that you did all that work. Yeah, amazing.
Of course, not me alone. I mean, without team riders, without their skills, without the feedback,
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't be able to
I
do all
can
that.
sense it has your handwriting. That is obvious to me.
Sure. I mean, I'm the guy in front of the orchestra, right?
Yeah, sure. All right. Thanks a lot for your
Okay.
time. And I think, yeah, we will record another one with another topic. But yeah, the people can, of course, write their questions in the comments. Maybe if we get some unanswered, interesting comments, we can make another one talking about these. And with that being said, thank you and see you the next time.